Ah, yes. Content. Now we have some content on the show. So last year when I was doing the show, it was during the weirdness of lockdown and everyone was really anxious and, feeling kind of unusual. Like there was very little chance to have any, interaction with listeners. And so this year we decided we'd try and manufacture some of that. So we sent out a request for questions for me, but only reasonable questions. So you guys have sent in many reasonable questions, very few unreasonable questions, which was reassuring. Let's play the ident.
Ask a reasonable question.
There you go. I think the expression "no expense spared" kind of exemplifies that ident. That's the way we do things on this show. So the first question from Jane. She says, do you own any band merch, and would you wear a band t-shirt, or is that uncool? I would never say if something is cool or uncool, really, because that's an uncool thing to do. I do remember in the 90s, I wore loads of t-shirts with, like kind of graphic things on them, like turntables or zany monkeys. And I've seen pictures of those, and it really makes me feel bad about myself. However, I do have two band t-shirts. I have two Frank Zappa band t-shirts. I like Zappa merch. They're just Mothers of Invention t-shirts. What I would really love is, famously, Frank Zappa ran for president in the States. And it never got off the ground, and he passed away quite soon afterwards. But there are these amazing t-shirts that exist that just say Zappa for president. I'd love an original one of those. Haven't been able to find one. There's also an amazing poster of Zappa on the Crapper, which is just Frank Zappa sitting really elegantly on the toilet. Quite like to find a t-shirt version of that. Again, haven't got my hands on one. The next question is from Claudia. Did you manage to read Ulysses in its entirety? That's a very reasonable question. Well, my story about Ulysses is I bought it in my 30s, and I said, you have to read this, Cillian. It's ridiculous. You're an Irishman. You should read this book. And I was doing a job in America, and I was on the plane, and I sat down, and then this other fella sat down next to me on the plane. I kind of quite sort of ostentatiously and pretentiously opened my copy of Ulysses, and he looked at me and said, "You'll never finish it, man." So when he said that, I was determined. And I did finish it. Now, it took me a year. I read other, simpler books in between, but I did finish it, and it was beautiful. I got some chapters, and then other chapters I didn't get, but I mean to go back to it in my 40s. Probably one of those books you should read every decade of your life. Oh, now it's time for Ask a Reasonable Question. Let's have the ident.
Ask a reasonable question.
This week, the question is from Sean. If you could form your dream band, who would be the lead singer, the guitarist, the drummer, and the bass player? I love these questions. These sort of questions myself and my pals ask each other continuously, and it continuously changes. So the answer I'm going to give you now will probably change tomorrow, or will have changed in a week or two. But for now, the dream band for me would be, on drums, John Bonham. Not a big surprise there. Probably the greatest rock drummer ever. On bass, James Jamerson. I could have gone with Flea, or I could have gone with McCartney. But you see, they all cite James Jamerson as their biggest influence. He was the sensational Motown bassist. You would have heard him on What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. Okay, guitar. I'm going to go with Robert Fripp, because I just love his angular, kind of pointy, unexpected guitar playing. I love his work with Eno and with Bowie on Heroes. And then on vocals, Sinead O'Connor, because she's just unbelievable, and I wanted to put an Irish person in there. So we'll have more reasonable questions next week.
Ask a reasonable question.
Yes, there it is, that glorious sound, which means it's time for Ask a Reasonable Question. So the first reasonable question this week comes from Kat. She would like to know your opinion on lyrics versus music. Do you hold these two equal in regard, or is one more important than the other when hearing a song for the first time? I think when I was younger, I was obsessed with melody and drums, rhythm. That was all I really cared about. And then as I got older, I think I began to value lyrics more. And like with everything else for me musically, a lot of my teaching came from listening to the Beatles. And I remember listening to Eleanor Rigby as a kid and hearing that lyric, wearing a face that she keeps in a jar by the door, and thinking that is a good line. By any standards, that's a staggering piece of writing. And then, very early Van Morrison stuff I really loved, like Astral Weeks. I like kind of, ambiguous, even though that some of that writing is quite specific geographically, it feels kind of ambiguous and opaque and impossible to kind of pin down. I like that in lyrics. I don't want the song to be unlocked for me. I want to unlock it myself. And I think in terms of the sort of lyricists that I like, you'll hear most of them on this show. Like somebody like Aldous Harding nowadays, I love her words. And that's what it is, I suppose, is the sort of, when you get a great arresting melody and lyrics, when they just click together, that makes a great song, isn't it? I think so, anyway. And then I'll do one more, and this is from Richard, and it's almost an unreasonable question. He says, blackcurrant and Guinness, yes or no? No. Now, I'm not sure what type of show this is, but I know it ain't a request show. However, I'm going to make an exception for myself, and I'm going to dedicate Modern Love by David Bowie to my little baby goddaughter, Nina Jackson. And that's one of her favorite songs for doing her little baby dances to. So Nina, in the likely event that you're awake this evening with your parents, that was for you.